Welcome all. Welcome to Impact Funding Summit Online 2020. We are going to be talking about power of exceptions in the times of exceptional times, handling exponential technologies, creating excellent business. So that's our topic for today. So we have an interesting speaker with us. He's an entrepreneur. He is an angel investor. He's a technology and strategy advisor to a lot of startups. He has led industry forums like Limo, and actually one of my first smartphones to move out of from N95 to this was Limo, and was the chairperson for the Internet Working Group. He's an ardent techie with several key technology patents to his credit. Ankush Tiwari, welcome to Impact Funding Summit Online 2020. Thank you.
So, thanks, Vishal. Happy to be here. Good evening, everyone. I'll just start I'll have a small presentation to share with all of you. And how we'll do is I'll just go over the presentation and then we will keep it open for a Q&A. Vishal, let me know once you're able to see the presentation.
Sure. Can you share that now again?
Yeah, I'm just doing that. There's something wrong. Okay. So let me know if you can see it. Is it visible? Can you see it at your end?
I can see that. Yeah.
Oops. There's something going wrong. Sorry. Give me a minute. I'm just sharing it again. There's something going wrong. Share audio, application window. Okay, let me share my entire screen and just do that. Okay, let me know if you can see the screen now.
Yes, we can see.
Okay, so sorry for this last minute glitch. So hi everyone, I'm Ankush. I'm co-founder of a company called Mobiliya and CTO there. And now Mobiliya is a Quest global company. So today I'm going to talk about the power of X. And X here is being defined as, exceptional times. And how do we think of exponential tech and then create exponential business model using the same. So this is not, nothing new. We all have been, going for more than a quarter now. And we all understand that we are going through some challenging times. Probably most of us haven't seen this in our lifetimes. And hopefully we may not see this again in our lifetimes, right? So what it brings out is that we need to have a bit of exceptional times. They will need a bit of exponential thinking. What used to work normally for us, now this norm has changed. And we need to have a bit of difference in our thinking and our approach to a lot of problems. Vishal, a quick check. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, we are able to see.
Okay. So let us take a look at, what are we going to talk about primarily. So today I'm going to talk about exception handling, because today we are living in an exceptional times, using exponential technologies, and how do we create exponential business models. So today's whole thing is going to be trying to have a positive spin towards these challenging times we all are going through, and figure out a way that, where does the opportunity lie for all of us, or where do we sense opportunities, and how do we find for some positivities for various things that we're doing in our lives today, right? So one of the things that I look at is that, this is if you look at the standard thing that we all were talking, right? So we all were either into a product business or into a services business. And primarily, this is the category that we were living in. So if you're a product company, you're always aspiring to build better products. If you're a service company, you're always aspiring to deliver better services. But there is a new paradigm that we need to think of, that hey, let's stop looking at whether I'm a product company or a service company. Let's stop looking at that silo. Let's only look at performance, right? And if you look at whether I'm doing a product or I'm doing a service, I am actually finally trying to improve performance of something that I'm working on, right? It's for my customers, it's using my product, improve performance of some productivity or things like that. So the idea is that, let's not define anything as product or services. Let's see if we can talk about things in terms of performance from here on. And this is one of the key things that I think that, if we all keep in mind, and whatever activities that we plan during these times, if this is in focus, I think we are going to find some wins for all of us here. Now, one thing that we see is that we are hearing these buzzwords of exponential technologies, and what we call exponential technologies is that which gives you exponential returns, right? And now the exponential returns could be in terms of the performance outcome they deliver, or it could be in terms of, let's say, process improvement they do, or they will increase your productivity, right? Various factors could be there. And today we all are familiar with these digital words like 3D printing, AI, machine learning, virtual reality, augmented reality, IoT, blockchain, right? Various jargons are coming up. So most of these are falling into exponential technologies because they are able to give us some exponential returns if applied correctly. So another important phenomena that we see is convergence, right? So there is going to be a convergence that is going to drive the performance. So if you look at, let's say, even the technology in silos, like AI or AR, if you look at those in silos, they may not be able to drive the kind of performance that you will expect. But if you try to think in terms of convergence, like, hey, I will merge 3-4 technologies and try to drive performance using that, I think that's where the exponential things are going to come up. Exponential returns are going to come up, right? So convergence of exponential technologies. And the second one that I'm talking about is the cyber-physical world, right? So today, we talk about digital technologies, software and all, but we always have a physical world around us. So if you remember, 1960s, 70s, when the industrial revolution started, right? So everything started getting mechanized. And that's what today we call the physical world, right? Where machines are there, heavy equipments are there, whether they are aircrafts and things like that. And then we have the layer of cyber, right? These internet companies that today you talk about, let's say the Google, the Microsoft, or the Amazon of the world. So I strongly feel that this convergence is happening in the cyber physical world, and there'll be some interesting business models, interesting performance outcomes that could be derived when we think about these convergence well at our ends. So now let's take a look at some example, right? So I'll take a very simple example. I think most of you would have used this or would have seen this, but let's try to look at a little bit deep into this app store enabled disruption, right? So if you look at this, right? So we change from, we all used to call, let's call a cab or let's call a taxi. It suddenly became, let's call an Uber, right? And Uber is nothing but an app store created phenomena. So if you look at early 2000, when it started becoming viral, it was an app in the app store, nothing more than that, right? So there was a driver which could get an app from the app store and become an Uber associated driver. And then there were passengers who could download the app on the passenger side, and they got the convenience of calling the cab at their own time. And you look at this, right? Uber, if you look at it, fought through every taxi union in the world. And it was not easy, right? What they went through. But the consumer performance or the convenience that they drove was phenomenal. So a lot of things, a lot of barriers that were there. I mean, they were banned in city of London. In fact, there are few cities where even today they are banned, like city of Vancouver in British Columbia doesn't allow them today. But you see that they broke that barrier in most of the places. If I try to look at it a bit more ahead today, if you see here, we have autonomous cars, right? So Uber, which became only as an app store phenomena, is actually also working on autonomous cars. And if you see, the business case of having an autonomous car owned by an Uber is much higher than an autonomous car owned by a General Motors, right? So because of that, they pushed the barriers of innovation and pace at traditional car manufacturers to quickly adopt to the autonomous car maps. And if you see today, the top companies in autonomous car that you hear, they are internet companies as well, right? Whether it's Google has one. Uber, again, you will call it an internet company, but they have a very large program for autonomous cars as well, right? So again, an app store phenomena came in and started challenging the traditional 100-plus-year-old automotive industry, the Fords, the GMs of the world, the Volvos of the world, the Merck of the world, to change their roadmap and adopt to autonomous cars. And third, if you see, they all are having an attempt to do flying taxis, right? So we know that Volocopter is going to do trials next year in Singapore. There are some companies about to do trials in city of Dallas, in UAE, right? So it's not something like, you can say that is coming from a sci-fi movie. It's a close reality that is about to happen, right? So if you see this disruption by Uber, right, which was just an app store enabled phenomena, right? It pushed the boundaries of innovation and changed some of their roadmap things driven from their boardrooms in the traditional automotive world, which was very traditional, very old, and very established, right? And then second one, aero companies, if you see whether it's Airbus, Boeing, everybody is trying to get a piece of the flying taxi piece, right? I mean, Bell Helicopter removed the name helicopter from their company, right? It's only called Bell now. Third one, this is again that I am predicting. We are not looking at that, what's going to change with the infrastructure companies, right? Imagine if flying cars, flying taxis, when they start becoming ubiquitous, and they will be, right? They will operate on battery and they will be autonomous. What's going to happen is that you don't need the kind of road infrastructure that we build today. The amount of spending we do on building the road infrastructure, and we can still reach a lot of places without that. Second, everybody is living in urban areas, right? And with COVID, with work from home changing, and imagine you add on to this a piece of flying taxis, right? Do you really need to live into, let's say, South Mumbai or central places in the cities where pollutions are high, traffic density is very high? Do you really need to do that, right? If you can just fly, take off vertically, fly horizontally, and reach your destination in shortest time, right? So what impact it will have on real estate developers, what impact it will have on people who develop roads. So the big question is, right, so when Uber started, let's say 2011, 2012, if you all think about it, if you all look at all analytics, if you look at, all, let's say, all the big reports that would have been, what would Uber go and disrupt, right? I don't think that we would have seen reports during that time that is going to disrupt, let's say, aero industry, automotive industry, or even maybe tomorrow when we will see infrastructure as well, right? But it's now competing or disrupting a lot of other industries which were difficult to imagine when they started. But if you look at it in reality, right, it's very easy for us to come and say in 2020, in the hindsight, hey, these are all connected phenomena, right? But the magic is when they were starting, could you connect these, right? So these are the effect of, let's say, the digital disruption, and they cannot be foreseen well in advance a lot of times. And the second challenge is their pace cannot be predicted, right? Sometimes they happen very quick. See, all this what we are talking has happened in less than a decade time. And I think this pace is phenomenal if you look at the amount of disruption that has happened in this time. But let's again, try to link this back again at every step what was doing. Uber with an app tried to enhance the performance, that is usage of a taxi, right? So it improved the performance of the taxi it was used. It enhanced the person sitting at home with his own car. I mean, this doesn't happen in some of, let's say, countries like India, where you still have to have a taxi number plate to operate a taxi. But let's say in other markets, people who had free time could just go and earn some, say, personal cars as well, and people sitting idle at homes as well. And from the consumer side, it gave them the convenience of, not having a cab booked for the whole day. They can do point-to-point travel, optimize their costs. So everywhere, if you see, the key was performance. Now, whether you call it product or Uber is a product company or a services company, but I think at every stage, what it did was it enhanced the performance of somebody in the ecosystem that it was operating in. So if you look at, what made it possible? So I think it is made possible by convergence of technologies, right? So it is not that it is IoT, it is AI, it is one thing driving the other, right? So if I look at it, So there will be IoT of sensors involved in doing autonomous car. There is ton of AI being done in autonomous car. There is cloud stuff coming. There's cybersecurity coming, right? We will see soon 3D printing also bringing some cost downs here. So it's convergence of multiple technology into one, which is driving this performance. Second, what happened was, which was only a cyber phenomenon, right? If you look at it, was only a cyber phenomenon started, which means it was only a digital app available in App Store, right? So again, here I'm saying the convergence of the cyber physical world is happening. Now it's going and pushing on the barriers of innovation for autonomous cars, enhancing the pace, and also doing the same for, let's say, the flying cars or the flying taxis, right? So the cyber physical world is also being converged, right? So now here I want to just introduce one more concept. So today, to look at, let's say, the performance enhancement in the cyber physical world, what we are talking about is that can we look at every physical object, let's say whether it's some complex machine like a compressor, aeroplane, a train, can we create a digital twin equivalent of that using convergence of exponential technologies? And I'll explain, why I'm talking about this, right? So let's assume there's an autonomous car that we are working on, right? It's got tons and tons of physical components. People have to go create parts, create test environments, have actual components ready and all, right? Now, the digital twin equivalent is like, which can replicate the system in a digital form, right? So where I could be able to, let's say, give various signals, give various input, various data points, and analyze the outcome without actually physically assembling the content, right? So that's why I'm talking about the convergence of cyber physical world. Can we think about digital twins as one of the key things that's going to drive performance or going to help us enhance performance of existing systems faster? So what we are saying is that this digital twin is not something new. So, and I will give you some examples later on. So if you look at this, we need to create a culture of imagination along with innovation to see everything as a digital twin. And I'll talk about these two things with a bit of more detail in later. So what's a digital twin? It's a digital replica of a living or a non-living physical entity. And it refers to a digital replica, as I said. Imagine that you have a compressor or a physical compressor. I can just make a digital compressor and give various signals, pass through various parameters of, let's say, rotation, vibration, and see the impact on things, right? So it really helps me to do things without having the physical object with me. But I would cover the culture of imagination a bit later, but it needs a bit of culture of imagination to think in terms of digital twins. So if you look at this, right, the cyber physical world through digital twins. So what we are saying, either it's an equipment. I gave an example of a compressor, centrifugal pump. It could be a process. Let's say a process that you go and inspect machines, right? There's a physical inspector that goes and sees, hey, whether there are any cracks in this machine or whether there's any dent in this object and all, right? So that's what I call as an inspection process, right? And the last part is when you combine an equipment and process, you get actually a system, right? Let's say somebody building a complete train with various kinds of equipment into that, and then various kinds of processes being implemented to observe the running of the train, right? So then you create a complete digital twin of a train. Now, why are we saying, why should we even do this? Why should we even try this, right? So if you look at this, any equipment that you create today needs training of people for operations, training of people for maintenance, and then also troubleshooting our devices when something goes wrong, right? All these equipments. Now, once I have a digital twin of that, and let's say if I see that, let's say a simple example would be I measure and pressure at a point and say this pressure is coming at 10 psi or something, where ideally it should be like 50 or 30, then I can pretty much try to give that pressure point in some part in my digital replica and try to figure out what could cause this, right? And the digital system will tell me that, hey, you probably go and check here. These could be 5 causes of that. Rather than somebody opening up manuals, trying to do 5 other things on the actual physical equipment, going there and very time consuming, right? So on a digital twin, you can do it remotely. You can do it with the sitting at convenience of your home and much more quickly. So that's how we see that the cyber physical world needs to be looked at digital twins. And if you do this, you can enhance lots and lots of performance in various aspects of usage of a physical machine. So this is what I'm going to give you now. When I'm saying let's look at it as a digital twin, let's take it some real life examples. So we talk a lot about AI today, right? And let's look at, what has been happening through our childhood that we have seen. So when a child is born, he's born with a clean slate, right? There's nothing that is there, which is pretty much, let's say, when you're trying to train a machine learning algorithm and you have not trained anything, it's like a clean slate, right? So what happens initially? We are being taught by books, taught by teachers. You can see that this is what I call, which is learning, which is the data tagging or data input is happening, how it happens in the computer physical world today, right? And then you have your teachers, you have your mom telling you, hey, don't do this, don't do that. That's again doing data annotation of this is good value, this is bad value. So if you see, right, why I'm giving this example is that if you look at how today somebody trains an AI machine, what they do is they first take data, they tag data, this is good data, this is bad data, 10 means good, 1 means bad, or in some cases it could be vice versa, right? And that's where the data annotation piece comes in. Somebody is telling, hey, when it is coming towards 3 or 4, then it is going to go bad, it is going to go good, and all of that, right? So if you see in real life, you're seeing this digital twin actually existing when a kid is growing and the human brain is being trained. Some other, healthcare, if you look at Fitbit is a kind of a semi-replica of a digital twin for health. Retail, we were talking about, let's say, vision tech projects. If I have to do social distancing, typically what we will do is that we will have a person telling people, hey, you stay away and this and all. But, we can have vision assisted digital twins to assist that. This is a very interesting one. I'm showing this company called Wearable X. So if you see what they have, these clothing, and this clothing is filled with all kinds of sensors, and they have an app on the phone. And what it is doing is it is actually a yoga teacher. You can think of this as a digital twin for a yoga teacher. So you can have a posture, and then the sensors are sending data back to the app, and the app will tell you, hey, where you are right or where you are wrong, right? So if you see, a lot of performance is being driven by thinking digital twin in some of these various use cases. So now let's look at some real good business models that also have been created, right? So I'll show you, this is a company called Discovery in South Africa. And what they did was they created digital twin for driver behavior. And this is an insurance company, right? So if you see, they, with using some data from braking, cornering, speed, acceleration, distance, they created a digital twin and they identified what kind of driver you are by analyzing this. And by doing this, first thing is they delivered performance to the customer by ensuring that all the necessary help is available at that time to them. I'll just play a short video.
The car behind me hit me so hard I was forced under a bus.
Is the audio going at your end?
Yes.
Vishal, was the audio?
Yes, Ankush. Okay. Yes, perfect.
I tried to get out, but both doors were jammed. I jumped out the back door, and the first thing I did was phone my mom. Whilst I was talking to her, emergency services arrived. The force of my accident alerted Discovery Insure, and they immediately sent help. Paramedic rushed up to me, grabbed my arm just as I passed out, and when I came to, I was safely in the ambulance.
Discovery Insure, motor insurance.
So if you see, right, so what they did was, they did a very smart thing, right? So they delivered value to the customer by ensuring that all the necessary help can be made available to them when they detect the crash. And they put a small device, which is the vitality drive sensor, into the car, right, as an over-the-top equipment. Then slowly, when they had this behavior, they also started varying the price of the insurance based on the driver behavior, right? And again, it's a very smart thing, right? So what they did was they rewarded people who were driving well with a lower insurance value, and then for people who had high risk of getting into an accident by a higher insurance figure, right? So what they could do is they could onboard more people, and they could also make sure that they could safeguard their business interests. The next one is even more interesting, where this company went to, right? So they said, this is a company called Discovery Insurance, again, formed a bank. And this bank, what it did was, if you see, on the insurance, they learned that, hey, if I reward good behavior, which is if I reward a good driver with some discounts, and I know my business can afford it, can I do that to banking, right? And let's see what it means here.
Quick example. Unlike some banks, Discovery Bank rewards you for getting out of debt, not into it.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I thought you said something about a bank that rewards you for getting out of debt, not into it. I mean, that's just...
That's exactly what I said.
The banks don't do that. But do they? I mean, if they do, I want in. Wait, hey.
Upgrade to the world's first behavioral bank, Discovery Bank.
So if you see, very smartly, the same insurance company created this bank, and they what they thought was, hey, if I could do a bit of data mining on the behavior of a person, I think I have more chances of offering them products and earning more, even if I reduce the interest rates on something, right? And same thing, the learning they had was from getting it from driver behavior, right? So it's like, can you reward good behaviors? This again is, what you call an exponential thinking, very different thinking, but it gave them a really good new business model using which they have scaled. So you can read about these case studies. They are phenomenal case studies by Discovery in Africa. So actually, this one is my favorite. So I'll tell you. So there is a comedy theater in Spain, and they were almost on the verge of bankruptcy when the change in government taxes from 8% to 21%, right? And this is a theater. So let's see how they thought about, what to do in this scenario.
First comedy shows where you only pay for what you consume. We fitted each seat with a facial recognition system that detects the smile and proposed the following deal to spectators. Entrance will be totally free. If the show produces no laughs, you don't pay anything. However, if you laugh, you have to pay for each smile. Each smile produced is worth 30 euro cents, something that in this day and age is quite a reasonable price. At the end of the show, the spectator could check their laughter account before paying and even share it on social networks. And so that no one would cry for having laughed more than they could afford, the maximum amount to pay was 80 laughs for 24 euros. The average price of the ticket increased by 6 euros. The system was covered by the main national media outlets, and this produced 35% more spectators. Each pay-per-laugh show produced 28,000 euros more ticket money than was normally taken. Currently, the system is being copied in other theatres in Spain. A mobile phone app was created as a system of payment, and the first season ticket was launched for the number of laughs not shown.
So if you look at this, right, so what they did was they said that, what we'll do is we'll enhance performance. And let's say if it's a comedy show, what is performance means that people should laugh, right? So they said, hey, we'll offer a good product which will ensure that, we enhance the performance, which is laugh here. And then let's give the consumer the confidence, hey, you just pay per laugh. And you see, right, that the average ticket price when they did it was increased by 6 euros per person, right? Isn't it phenomenal? It's an exceptional thinking, and it creates an exponential business model, and it used exponential technologies because where they used tablet, where they used actually real-time detection of whether you're smiling or you're sad. So it is proving everything, right? Exceptional times they went through, 8 to 21. They got some exponential thinking, used exponential technologies, and improved the performance for the spectators and for themselves as well, right? So this is like they identified the chance to sell performance and monetize performance. Right? And then if you look at, right, let's say today, all we are into this work from home or work for home syndrome, right? And we are all suddenly, everybody knows Zoom, right? Right from my dad to mom, who probably never heard of Zoom, they're very much aware of Zoom today, right? So that's today, right? And we know that travel has been cut down. And then tomorrow, we all think that, this is something coming up, which is holoportation, right? And if you look at, we'll be having these holo 3D grams that will be transported to a place, even objects, and people can collaborate between them. So an opportunity to see that in today's world, how can I do complex collaboration between remote teams and still not lose on productivity? And we know that every day on the tech side, the CPU costs are coming down, the compute is becoming cheap, we are getting more and more sensors into our lives, and also every day the bandwidth is increasing at homes, right? I mean, 5 years back, it would have been difficult for us to have an air meet kind of call and transmit video, audio, and all at the same time when we were geographically so separated. But today, we all have those equipments at our home. We all have that kind of bandwidth available at our homes. So, how do you measure for tomorrow? There's measurement of performance, right? And we are very used to these typical things of either it should save dollars or it should improve productivity, right? And then we say that you need to have something like a Goldilocks zone defined where you get in performance and it comes into, let's say, in some form of increased ROI, increased performance, maximize productivity, minimum investment, right? So you try to create a zone where you think, hey, this makes sense, right? So it can't be only productivity increase or only dollar savings. It needs to somewhere figure out that how do I am able to drive performance of my service, my product, or my solution, right? So what did we see so far, right? So we saw some examples of digital twins, which demonstrated so if you look at, let's say, the insurance at the bank, right? So the insurance was a digital twin of a driver driving behavior, right? The bank, what it did, it created a digital twin of a human behavior, his food habits, spending habits, savings habit. They created a digital twin on that, right? And to track all of that, they used convergence of exponential technology, whether you call big data, AI, vision analytics, something or the other was used, right? And then they created exponential business models, whether it's like pay per laugh, whether it's like improving good behavior, or some people call it like commitment-based models. Those are new kind of business models they created, rather than, let's say, saying just this is a product and this is what you have to take it. They always focused on performance in all those, and somehow had a way of measuring that performance and monetizing it as well. So it's like this, right? In the new and evolving business models, as a service is the new norm, right? We say software as a service, SaaS companies, right? So we think it could just become a phenomenon anywhere, right? It could be home as a service, it could be device as a service, we will see automotive as a service, we could see analytics as a service, right? So there could be a new set of business models that will come out, which will be, just as a service, which is again, pay per use kind of models that are there. But in these, again, the performance, how you measure performance of home as a service, like which is Airbnb, right? Which the good measure of Airbnb is that the occupancy rates that they have increased and the returns that they give on a per day basis, right? Device as a service, I would say, is like, today I buy a laptop, but I know that every 2-3 years my laptop goes for a toss. So why don't I subscribe from, let's say, an HP or a Lenovo and say, hey, I'll just subscribe to this laptop. You keep on chip. So we'll see some of these completely different disruptive models that will come in. So again, this we have seen what are the reversals of some of the things, right? Due to COVID-19. Most of us, let's say in the corporate life, if you say work from home, I'll only come to office one day, 5 months back, you would have 50 things, right? That, hey, you should not do this, there's an HR rule, there is this, there's privacy, blah, 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 right? You will get 50 excuses not to do it. Just fast forward like 4 months later, today, I think it's just an accepted phenomenon around the world. And to a point, people talking that, hey, we should cut down our commercial real estate by 50% so that we bring down our cost, increase performance there, and let people work from home because we are seeing it's working fine. And then I think we'll see changes in tools and ways of operations. And this, what is highlighted in green, I strongly believe in that. Automate the routine, right? Anything which is routine, which is normal, which is the norm, it will get automated, and humanize the exception. We will be needed wherever there is exception. Again, the power of X comes in. As human beings, a lot of people say that a lot of jobs will be lost and all, but if you read into this line, if you are doing routine work, it will get automated. Those jobs will definitely get lost. But if you upgrade yourself to handle the exceptions, right, like building AI engines, or there are multiple things, it's not only software, right, it will be everywhere. So whatever is the exception which cannot be automated, that's where the human interface will be needed, and that's where people have to upskill themselves to make sure they stay relevant and they are able to have a great future. So, what are the major trends due to the convergence that we are seeing? The world is getting hyper connected. We will have 5G very soon in 2 to 3 years. I think COVID may push it out by 1.5 years. You will see drones. You will see flying cars, taxis. Another thing that I'm seeing is renewables is killing oil and gas, right? So, if you look at 10 years back or 15 years back, I would say, everybody was saying, hey, oil will disappear. What will you do with automotive? It's going to be a big scare, everything, blah, blah, blah. Today, do you even hear that? Nobody talks about oil and gas getting disappeared, right? Tesla has come in and shown the world what to do there. Similarly, I think today, if you look at fast forward today we are talking about, hey, drinking water is going to be a big problem. We will not have drinking water 10 years, 20 years down the line, blah, 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 right? But I strongly, disagree on this point as well, because today, if we know that more than 70% of Earth is filled with water, 90%. But it's just the problem is that we have that sea water, which is salty. And then we know that the world is working towards desalination, and desalination has already been done. It's just that the cost is a bit prohibitive. But what will you bet on? You will bet on that in 10 years, human brains are going to figure out and do desalination at a very economical cost, or you will live with the scare that, hey, 10 years, 15 years down the line, the drinking water will be scarce. I am a believer. I'm an optimistic guy. I think we will figure it out. And the way we don't talk about oil and gas anymore, I'm telling you, in 10 years down the line, we may see the same happening for drinking water. And then we are seeing healthcare. Healthcare is going to go through a major change. Today, it's more and more reactive, right? If I get a headache, then I try to do something. If I get a stomachache, then I try to do something. Look at Corona, right? It has happened, and then we are still struggling for figuring out what to do with it. It will move from reactive to preventive, right? And one of the big change, exponential tech that is going to drive is quantum compute. And if you look at the amount of compute that is becoming available with quantum computing, we are going to see that in the study of genes and all, the impact that is going to create are going to be huge. And again, I think we are talking about 10 to 12 years in future only that we will see all these things happen. So what we say is that, the culture of imagination is what I'm highlighting here. So if you see whether it comes to digital twins, whether it comes to the business model, whether it comes to think of what to do, all the examples that we saw, I think innovation is one aspect. But before that, I think we need to have a culture of imagination, like what to do, how to charge for it, how to have this conviction of going to have a go-to-market on some different models. And then once you have the culture of imagination fired up in your organization or in your people, then of course, once you define that, then you can innovate. So I think culture of imagination has to come in before the culture of innovation. And then the exponential thinking, the process, then, I would say could be, I think it can't have a process, but a possible way could be have a culture of imagination, define the innovation using convergence, pass through an ROI framework, do the execution, and make sure that you measure the ROI that how you started it, right? This is where the performance aspect will come in. So I think to accelerate the performance, we need convergence of cyber and physical world. We spoke about that. And then we have to mitigate these imposed challenges and sustain the changes, turn the tables by converting the changes into chances, and see if you can make it possible with technological convergence and digital thinking. In the end, I would just like to conclude with performance will be focused on rather than products or services. I strongly believe in that. That's how we should think. Ensure that the culture of imagination coexists with the culture of innovation and drives performance. Acceleration of digital adoption across industry will be possible by convergence of tech and create new business models linked to performance, right? So I think these are some of the ways that we see some of these things will get accelerated, will get more adopted due to the exceptional times we see. So I strongly believe exceptional times need exceptional thinking, and we have the exponential technologies and exponential business models to help us. So it's in our hands to see how we can use it. But every mess is an opportunity. So let's see that whether we can smell some opportunities in the challenges that we all are going through. So that's all I had, Vishal. Open to Q&A.
Yeah, that was very interesting. I think especially the digital twin and the Discovery Bank and the Laugh Comedy Theater was really interesting to look at. You laugh and listen. And I think hologram, what you mentioned with, I think 5G around the corner, and I'm very excited about the, as in mixed reality and this, I think it's going to, and probably if we had it a little earlier, COVID, we would have already had that. So I guess that's going to trigger this event in terms of this thing. So just open for participants who are connected via laptop can raise their hand and they can ask a question. We can get you to the stage. Else you can drop a message in the questions tab and we can take questions. So Ankush, while we are waiting for questions from the audience, I wanted one of this thing, because some of our audience is NGOs and social purpose organizations who are there, and I think a lot of things have changed post COVID, and one of them is the way you raise funds or way you use grants, and the face to face, this thing has disappeared, and everybody is now looking to come online and do that. So if you are an NGO and you're this thing, so what should be your approach? Because usually social media is easy to do, but it's difficult to get people on board. So what approach could they actually look at?
So I think again, I'll go back to the word that I used frequently in my talk today was performance, right? And if you look at what people are looking at from NGOs is that how are they creating an impact on the social side? So it's all about today, and the digital helps in creating that transparency and giving visibility into a lot of people who would like to contribute in terms of funds or kind or whatever, but they would like to see the performance outcome, right? So if we are able to build a transparency, and one of the best things is to get digital there, and also I think you guys are doing a great job in terms of ensuring that everything is transparently shown up, and also in terms of various. Everybody has a different motive, right? Somebody may be interested in medical, somebody in education, somebody in childcare, child labor, all of those things, right? So as long as we can make sure that they are available, people can pick and choose from, and transparently get the confidence of that. Hey, this is being used well, and these guys are really driving the performance of using the money that or things that I'm contributing on. I think that will help. So remotely, when we can't meet, we can't physically be there. If we can just build that trust, long-lasting trust, that would help.
Okay, so we have a couple of questions. I think the first one, and I had this like 4 or 5 years back when I visited AI by the Bay in San Francisco. We had this question about Uber, and everybody was talking about autonomous cars. And when we came back to India, how do we manage that, right? There was like autonomous lanes and this thing. So I think the question we've got is, can you share Indian perspective about this? And I think you kind of shared that on the flying cars and this thing. So can you go a little deeper into the Indian
Yes.
context?
I'll give an example. Right? Let's rewind back 15 years, 2000, let's say 4 or 5. We all were traveling to US 6, 7, I think 4, 5, I think 7, 8. Let's say 2007 or 8. Not that long ago, also, right? 12 years. We started getting the first. That time it was Yahoo Maps, and then we started getting first glimpse of Google Maps, right? Towards later part of it. And when you experience Google Map in US and you were coming back to India, say, gosh, it's not possible. India, you just can't map India the way it is. Fast forward to today, right? You look at anybody, what people are sharing, hey, send me a Google link. Doesn't matter who you are or where you are. You just share the Google link, and then people are there. Now let's look at autonomous car, right? I mean, it's a challenging problem, right? It's a challenging problem in the West. It's a different challenge in our country. And if you see, but technology is going to find ways of solving it, right? So the solution to autonomous car could be in India that, hey, let's jump the road autonomous car. And I think this I feel globally. I think we're spending too much time on doing the autonomous car on the road. We should just focus more on flying cars. I think that takes out the infrastructure building of the road, land acquisition, all those challenges. We may just see that jump of going to flying taxis.
Yeah, and I think I couldn't agree more because I think in the conference 5 years back, there were two guys who were trying to build something on flying cars, and there was people who were saying, "Why are you crazy? We should solve this." I think we can completely jump that, and that will be very relevant in terms of this thing. There's another question, and I think the digital twin that you spoke about. So Suraj is asking about digital twin application in
Yeah.
genetics or clinical research. I think it's related to nanotech and other things as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I think, one of the biggest application that is coming of quantum compute is in the healthcare, and it's in the gene study, right? So how a cell becomes what organ, right? So they're trying to do this organ study. And the number of permutation combinations that are possible to study there are today beyond the fastest computer that we have, right? I mean, it takes ages to do and study all the permutation combinations that are possible. So if you look at quantum compute and look at there, see, one of the top applications that are coming from there are those. And if you look at that, is what I call, in the quantum compute world, that is going to be, let's say, the digital twin for study of cells and organs, or the genetic side that you're talking about. And quantum compute is really lowering the barrier there. Other one that I would say is in the clinical research. If you see, have you heard of the company called Neuralink? So where we're trying to get brain downloaded. This is Elon Musk company. So lots are happening. I always tell my friends, hey guys, for the next 10 years, just earn enough money so that you can spend on longevity of life. There will be enough for you to perpetuate your life for longer, as long as you want, maybe in 20 years.
Wow, we think alike because I think I keep telling people 20 years is what you need to survive. Correct. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And yeah. And I completely
So
agree.
I
And I
think,
think people like Elon
maybe,
Musk is really good. And
yeah, maybe we may be trading in time that time, right? So with some people. And
okay.
we're not talking something which is not possible. If you see the amount of innovation that is happening on longevity of life is phenomenal. The amount of work that is happening on that, and quantum computing is really going to accelerate that.
Yes. So I think we've got another question, which is about how can such exponential technologies be used for creating social impact? And I think there's a lot of use cases, but
Yes.
yeah.
So I think, I mean, if you look at, and Vishal, I know you are doing it already. So so it's like, one of the thing is building trust, right? One of the biggest thing is how do you build trust. And I strongly feel there is a lot of people are raising hand today for good causes, right? So that's available. But the worry is that I'm raising my hand for the good cause, but is my hand being used for a good cause is something the trust has to build a lot of places, right? So if you see, and Vishal, you have been working on that blockchain related thing, right? So where you're giving complete transparency to people who are getting involved. People can pick up, people can run their own, let's say, what they want to do, how they want to create impact, right? So some of these traceability things, some of these, let's say, today, if you look at, there's ton of money being put, but how are you measuring the performance of that money being put on the NGO side, right? So, and that's where I think, Vishal, what you are thinking, and I know what you have been working on, will have like a great impact for a lot of people. And if you see, all scale backs to how to measure performance and how to communicate performance, right? And build that trust. And that's where the exponential tech like blockchain, doing dashboards, doing various kind of sensors and all would come into play. And real time stuff can come in because bandwidth is available, and you can take it to real gram panchayat level also in our country.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And I think for the audience, one of our other speakers actually, he gave another very interesting example on how you can use, and he used that to raise money. So he created a class in Africa and through VR, okay, and they could actually, whoever's logging could actually see, turn around and actually see, hold the class, what is the state of the people that the kids are studying and they really need help. And he was able to raise in millions. So he was able to raise multi-million donation for that one school, and he went on to create a complete program around that. So I think that's really amazing. And I think one is the platforms that we are creating, because also Paresh from Paresh from Piramal Foundation, who's the CEO of Piramal Foundation, he actually said that I think it's time in the social sector that we look at it as a community, okay, and move from projects to platforms. So when you're creating platforms, I think all this, a lot of exponential things will come into play. I think another interesting one, and there's been a lot of work done, and I think Abhijit is from our team, but he actually comes from an agriculture background, so I guess that's where he is asking. So there's a lot of this thing on tech in agriculture, and this is actually impact because majority of our economy is comes in from the agriculture sector. So what is your process? I know some of your close friends are kind of, there's a lot of things happening in the sector, so maybe you can tell us something about that.
Yeah. So if you look at the predictions of, by the way, I don't believe in too many analyst predictions though, but if you look at one of the hottest sector that people are predicting is the agri-tech today, right? And I can tell you there are some very good companies that are working on this. So what was happening was today, if you look at agriculture in and around us, there are a lot of things that happen by chance rather than by design, right? So by chance, I mean is that there's a lot of things that you're just praying that it won't happen. Now, whether it is a weather storm or whether it is like, let's say, we had this fly, right? What was that called? I forgot the name. We had this yellow flies, right? That just eat up the whole farm in no time, right?
Correct.
So there are a lot of factors where we were just praying that it won't happen. But now with tech, you can get weather. People are doing a lot of things on soil, and people are trying to predict patterns that what you should grow, the yield is better. So there's a lot of tech that is coming into the agri-tech space. The challenge today is that again that probably there are a lot of silo attempts, or there are very fragmented attempts that are happening, and I think one of the challenges that we think in India is that when we think about tech, and I think Abhijit, it is a great question. We all as entrepreneurs, we all are trying to serve the India A, which is, if you ask me, which is like 15% of India, right? Whether it's Amazon, Flipkart, Walmart, Swiggy, all these companies that you think of, we're only trying to serve, let's say, only about 15% of India. And then a lot of times we think that the tech is going to be challenging for people to use in some of the areas that where, let's say, agri is done. But I think it's a challenge and opportunity for us as an entrepreneurs as well, that can we give them what they can use simply. And Uber is a great example, right? You didn't have to teach people how to use Uber, and you got all drivers, millions of drivers on Uber in our country. They didn't need education, they need too much of training. It's just that something phenomenal was built. Similarly, I think we as entrepreneurs, and again into the context of our country, we need to make sure that the local money comes in, and then we create like a farmer in Maharashtra behaves very differently from a farmer in Bihar versus a farmer in Tamil Nadu, right? So we need to make sure that we build stuff that they can take, and the biggest performance drive that we can do. I mean, if you look at the amount of wastage that happens in agriculture is phenomenal, and the amount of things that happen by chance is phenomenal. So I think that space is up for disruption. There, people started working on it, and we will see this in the next 10 years. You will see some unicorns coming in the space. Vishal, you're on mute.
Okay, sorry. So we just have 4 more minutes, and there are a couple of questions. One of them is this thing. So this is from Tejista Pradhan. Why can't we move structures of having electronic bicycles in newly developed cities of the future? I'll actually broaden this and say, why can't we have tech which can enable entrepreneurship, whether it's urban or rural area, right? So how do you create this thing and get structure in place for people to enable that?
Sorry, actually, I couldn't follow. So you're saying, how can we have structure for creating entrepreneurs?
Yeah, for this thing, yeah, for this, I'm coming more from, not from a tech background. I'm coming more from your role as a part of the advisory board that you work with venture capitalists. I think you're evaluating on a daily basis hundreds of startups. So how do you create this thing for the social ecosystem to encourage and do that? Because I think Tejista spoke about electronic bicycles. There could be many more this thing which can come in for cities and rural system.
So if you ask me, right? So again, so everywhere we're trying to enhance. Let's think of any problem that we are trying to solve is enhancing performance, right? We're not thinking, let's say, product or services. We're only going to think enhancement of performance. Now, when we look at that, so today, where is, let's say, a large volume of India lives, right? It's not the tier 1. If you look at the metros, 220 rest of 10 million metros. So if you combine them, you may not even reach a 100 million figure. We are a country of 1.4 billion. So if you even just do the odds of the maths right, there is a significant portion of India which is untouched and which is looking for a lot of things in opportunity, right? So if you look at in the COVID times, the amount of money that Jio has raised, that money is raised for some reason, right? So that money is raised for 1.4 billion, and the way they are doing it, they're only not targeting, let's say, the 100 million, sub 100 million population living in tier 1 cities. So in terms of, let's say, the ecosystem, we all have to, as investors, as entrepreneurs, have to understand that there is what 10% of India is there, but there's still significant percent of India which is non-metro. And what are the opportunities that lie there? What are the performance outcomes that they're looking at? Agriculture is one phenomenal thing. Supply chain. Why do you want to set up a big, let's say, a warehouse for Amazon near Pune, near Mumbai? Why not? It should be somewhere between Nasik and Pune, right? Can't we create some meaningful structures there, right? When these things are there. So I would say, it's a question of, again, thinking performance for beyond metro that we all have to think of.
Yeah. Okay. I think we've just got one more minute, and I think this is an interesting question. I think we'll need a lot more time to talk. But what if digital twins were created for human beings by storing their behavior and memories? Do you see this happening in near future for making people live forever? I think you touched upon a bit in terms of the longevity.
So there is a company. There's a company which is already doing that. I forgot the name. So what you can do is you can have your recording conversations on that. And suppose if when I'm no more, my kid, so that engine is trained, and then my kid can talk to them and figure out that how my dad would have given advice on that. I don't know whether you saw, there was a new series on Prime, I think. I forgot the name of that. There was a new series on Prime that has come. So a person is dying. Very interesting one. I forgot the name. Shit. When the person is dying, he has a choice of actually whether he goes to an operation theater and take the risk of whether he'll stay or not, or he goes to a place where his whole digital twin is replicated. So he shifted to a complete digital world, AR, VR, his brain is there, and there are call centers who can talk to them in AR, VR mode, right? So some of these things would happen, but in reality, today, your Instagram, Facebook are actually a pseudo digital twin of yours, but you don't realize it.
That is so true. Yes, I think this is an interesting question, both for the exponential tech and this thing. I'm sure in the near future, as you say, probably take care of yourself and health for next 20 years, and then tech will take care of everything else. So this thing. And I think as we were kids, when we were looking at Star Trek, right from the lift which used to open and close, it used to look like a tech now. And probably someday we'll be beamed. So, okay. So I think it's, Ankush, it was a fascinating discussion in terms of the presentation that you did, digital twins, I think exponential technology, quantum. I think it's going to change a lot of things with 5G coming in somewhere close. Now we are near there, but probably with COVID something in a few years. We tested. So thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure having you on board Impact Funding Summit, and we'll have many more conversations. Thank you. And thank you, audience, for joining in all your questions.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Vishal, for hosting
Thank you.
me. I wish you all the best, and all the best to Meraklis as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ankush.